certain amount of cash we got, and I suggested, well, why don't we build a statue in commemoration of the mining industry? And sometimes we forget the mining industry fueled the Industrial Revolution, and also what we forget, that the point was it made a lot of people, mine owners, rich, but the problem was miners didn't share in the wealth that it made. And it's interesting to note this statue stands for lots of things, but it also stands for miners that fought to have the right of representation. What I mean by this, that they had a right to form a union. And it's amazing, isn't it? Even today, that we're still fighting to get full recognition of trade union movement. And there's those in the movement that ought to hang their heads down in shame. But also, that the miners' statue represented they wanted a voice in Parliament. And they forget that it was the miners that helped to have representation in Parliament. But we've got a situation today which is deplorable, when you get the deputy leader of the Labour Party saying to the bin workers in Birmingham, accept the offer. Well, would she accepted the offer of a £8,000 reduction in their wages, and they're supposed to be representing us? You've got a situation, I mean, in the trade union movement, they took a few crumbs at them. Oh yeah, we'll accept that. We're not prepared to make any fuss or to fight for it. But if you're not prepared to fight, if you can't fight, you'll never get anything. And that's what miners had to do. They're ones that fought. It isn't so long ago that we remembered over 100 years of mining representation. And in fact it's 140 years if we're going to be correct. But the thing is, this isn't it. There were people in the industry that worked with the government to bring about the fall of the coal industry. We've got a situation now that we'll try the alternative nuclear power. But what they don't tell you, we'll have to subsidise it. It's going to cost even more to have nuclear power. There's 1,000 years of coal getting. Then they have the audacity to talk about energy security. We can have energy security tomorrow. Then there's the Greens say, oh, but it's a dirty fuel. It's not a dirty fuel. Dirty fuels can be made clean. If I'm dirty, I can be made clean. It needs to be scrubbed up sometimes. But these are things that we can produce from coal. It isn't so long ago that I remember when I was in the industry that Lord Robins, notice Lord Robin, had a plan to turn coal into petroleum so we could run our cars on. But no, that wasn't allowed. If you look back in the last dispute, Sheffield University, and they got no axe to grind, they said the redundancy of payments alone would have kept the industry going at full capacity. There was a 10-year plan. Of course they denied it, but so if you look back, I think I'm not very good at mathematics. The amount of money alone would have kept the industry going at full capacity. Then they talk about growth. We could have had growth, but no, it was growth on their terms, isn't it? And so therefore it's also good to remember, not only with the coal industry, that it powered the Industrial Revolution. They forget those kind of things, isn't it? And it's amazing though. This statue stands for also people that betrayed that trust. Let me tell you that a few friends of ours was in Guernsey, and they stood in the square there at Guernsey, and they saw a trade union leader on the right of the party shuffling along, and they followed him in the back, and he was putting money, piles of money, out of nobody's business. You've only got to look to see what happened. I remember, and I can't name names, a certain person in South Derbyshire, all we ever had was a terraced house and the clapped up Ford Escort. Yeah, I know I'm old. And all of a sudden he got a detached house on top of the range Audi. So where did that come from? They were bribed and it's disgraceful. But you know, there's something wonderful, isn't it, about it all. There were men and women that stood out above it all. When we were campaigning about pit closures, the manager of the colliery told me categorically, he says, if you stand out there giving leaflets, you won't have a job. Fair enough. So what do? The retired miners came in and they gave the leaflets out. They dreaded us. They gave the leaflets out and one of them said, you know, you can't sack me, can you? And that's the state we was in. That's the amount of hatred and bitterness they had for people that were prepared to stand on the principles. Because if you've got no principles and you've got no morals, you've got nothing to stand for at all, is it? Yeah, there is a price to pay. But they paid it. And I'm thank God that I can remember one that campaigned vigorously to keep the coal industry going. They couldn't defeat us and they didn't defeat me. And if I had my life over and over again, I'd do exactly that. I can say that I didn't compromise and I didn't sell out and I stood for what I believe in. And that's what we need today, men and women that are prepared to stand out on principle and say, we've had enough, we're not taking anymore, we don't have to take it. They tell us there's no alternative. But of course there's an alternative. But the problem today, what it boils down to, one simple fact and one simple fact alone, capitalism is failing. And the problem is the answer cannot be and will not ever be found in the Labour Party because they're hand in glove with them. There's no book come out showing the moral things what were going on, where there us things going on. The Labour Party sold out left, right and centre. That's why I've been a socialist all my life. There is an alternative. And that's why I stand for an alternative. Stand that we might have a change. Stand that we can change it. It's all, you know, you can't do anything about it. Of course you can't do anything about it. You're not prepared to fight for what you stand for and what you believe in. They hate us more than anything else. You know, they said to me once about Thatcher, and somebody said to me, well, she ought to be hung. I said, give me the rope, I'll pull it for you then. I mean, you just think of a vile creature like that and what she did to this country. We're even paying the price. And now we've got Starmer and all this saying we've got no alternative and we've got to do this and we've got to do that. We haven't got to take it. I'll tell you the biggest problem is the working man has got to learn to get off his feet and fight back. But that's what they'd be dreaded if the working man started fighting back, because that's what's needed to change this regime. Because if we don't, I'll tell you where we're heading. We're heading straight for fascism. And this is where they'll take advantage of the far right will. And I believe today we need men and women that will stand up and will be counted. Thanks for listening to me anyways.